Many people know me as the Angel of Rap. I toured the interior of the state of Minas Gerais, playing in various places, and I even performed for crowds of up to 50,000 people. The place was packed. It was a nightclub. I'd even been on TV shows. Even with all that, with spotlight, with the people, with so much, let's say, glamour, it wasn't for me. I had an immense emptiness, a gigantic void inside me. I was a very depressed child. I had no contact with a father figure. I didn't know my father, so this caused me a lot of conflict. I saw children the same age as me arriving at school with their father, arriving with their mother. Why does my classmate arrive with his mom and dad? And I'm here, and I don't know my father. I don't even have him for a photograph. The anguish inside me was so great. The emptiness inside me was so tremendous that a 10-year-old child was already getting drunk on pure moonshine. And that intensified so much inside me. That pain, that anguish, that the more it hurt inside my soul, the more I sought strength in capturing things to try to fill myself. I was introduced to drugs very early, by the age of 15. I had already tried marijuana and cocaine. At that time, what I found was the streets. Friendships. Involvement with marginal elements. That's what was close. That's what I clung to, because I had no one else to cling to. The places with parties, the events, the meeting points. Young people want to be cool. They want to be accepted. If I understand that this person's music makes sense to me, then if I start doing it, what I'm conveying will make sense to someone else. And that's how I started writing, composing, started recording, taking it to the radio. And it started to work. There I found a way, a palliative for my pain. So behind all the spotlight, behind that mask, sometimes smiling, but the smile was that of someone drunk on alcohol. I had no joy. I had no sparkle. I had no pleasure in living. I was living my life according to what was happening. And that's when I started having suicidal thoughts, desires. And this situation dragged on for years. And the fuel that made me want to seek more and more was being able to perform at a packed show like this one. Here there were 50,000 people. Many people paying attention to me, so to speak. But at the end of it all, I felt like the most miserable person in the world. And one day, I was at home, in the middle of the night, completely high on cocaine. And when I looked around the house, the shack I lived in, full of people, some lying in the corner of the sofa, and I was looking at that whole situation. I said, "My God, help me because I can't take it anymore." But that was only in my thoughts, because I didn't have the strength to talk to God. I expressed from my soul the situation I was feeling, the life I was leading. The pain in my soul was so great that, in spirit, I cried out for help. And the next day, 2 young women from the VYG knocked on my door. And one of them said, "To prove that it is God who brings us here, I'm going to issue a challenge to you. I will stay away from your house for a week. But you will have nights of sleep that you've never had in your life. Is that a certainty? This week you won't feel like using anything either." And they went away. I couldn't sleep. I had to numb myself to the extreme to fall asleep, because I couldn't sleep. And they came back. And how was it? I said, It was a different week. It was a different week. What you said worked. Huh? What you said worked. Yeah. Did you sleep well? I slept well. I didn't use anything. Oh. Okay then. God be with you. And I was like, what do you mean? You're not going to invite me to church? Oh. Okay. You already know where it is. I already told you the address. Right? We'll meet there. And on the day I arrived, it was a Wednesday. As soon as I arrived, I walked through the church doors. And right away I was greeted by the young people, the church assistants, as if I were a member of the family they had been waiting for many years. People I didn't even know. And when I looked towards the altar, it testified within me. God speaking. How good it is that you came. On Sunday, I already took everything I had. The street kid clothes, the hoodlum style, the cap, the beret, the way I like to dress, clothes with drug markings, with marijuana leaves, with allusions to crime. Everything that represented that street kid. I put it inside a black bag. Before the meeting started, on Sunday, I placed it on the altar. I spoke with God. My God, here is the Christian who until now has done everything wrong, who until now has suffered because of wrong choices. But what I have is here. This is my life. The sermon on Wednesday and Sunday says that I have to abandon error, abandon sin, abandon everything that is evil. So, the following week, I had already been baptized in the waters, and it was right on top of the campaign of Israel. And the pastor said, if you are not baptized with the Holy Spirit, you have an obligation to prioritize the Holy Spirit. If you want to remain, if you want to have a complete life, that has to be your prayer. And I, with little time in church, already said, that's exactly it. That's exactly what I'm going to do. But when I looked at myself, at my reality, at my situation, I said, what am I going to sacrifice? A misery, a tight squeeze, a shack with a tile roof, broken furniture falling apart, a cupboard with bricks. The sensitivity that God provided there wasn't about how much, but what I was willing and available to do. And I set that goal. I spoke to God. My God, here is the Christian who until now has done everything wrong, who until now has suffered because of wrong choices. But what I have is here. This is my life. And above all else in this life, I need your spirit. Here I am fulfilling my vow to be with me. I came down with the certainty that God would honor me. And then came also the fast of Daniel. And I was at home with that little radio. I had a small radio, and I was tuning in to the church radio station. And there was a moment when the bishop said, you are of no use to anyone, but you have value to God. Embrace that receiver. Embrace that radio. When you embrace it, it is God Himself embracing you. Receive it now. Be baptized with the Holy Spirit. Be filled with the presence of God. It was an amazing thing. A joy I had never in my life been able to experience. Nothing. There. God sealed it. There. It was confirmed. I am with you. I said, now. Yes. I have found the greatest good. And the interesting thing about all this is that 3 months before I arrived at the church, I was this Christian. 3 months later, I was already a transformed Christian, freed, healed, baptized with the Holy Spirit, with a completely different perspective on life, on the world, on everything. Today, thank God, I have a family. God gave me a family. Today I am married. A woman of God. I have a beautiful 5-year-old daughter. And before, when I sought recognition from people because of my artistic career, today I no longer need to be recognized by men. Today I am defined from within. God chose me. God has already accepted me, and that is enough for me. Today I am complete. God not only restores what was lost, but also provides things that person cannot even imagine are to come, something the altar certainly offers.